Welcome to Writer's Showcase. I am your host, Nola Nash, and I am the author of the Crescent City series, both Crescent City Moon and Crescent City Sin, and Traveler, which is launching in March of 2022. And I am thrilled to be here tonight with the multi-talented Jennifer Lieberman. Jen, introduce yourself to the folks who are watching and listening tonight.
Well, hi, Nola, and thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to chat with you. And hello, everybody out there in the interweb. I am Jennifer Lieberman. I am an actress who writes, produces, and directs in order to give myself acting work. That's how I got into wearing so many hats. I also do stand-up comedy from time to time for fun. Not in quite a while because of the pandemic. I did one live show in the spring in LA. But other than that, I haven't really been on the stand-up comedy scene in a while. The Zoom thing wasn't really for me in terms of stand-up comedy because it's so hard when you don't get an audience reaction.
I cannot imagine doing stand-up comedy on Zoom. I mean, I've been an online teacher, and teenagers with no cameras on, trying to teach two little black rectangles on the screen because that's all I've got. That's hard enough, but I wasn't trying to make them laugh. I wasn't trying to, feed off that energy. I cannot even imagine doing that.
Yes, I've watched a few Zoom plays. I've watched a few Zoom stand-up comedy pieces, and like all the power to these people. And I think it's definitely like a different muscle to flex. It's like a new skill to develop. But yeah, like if you don't hear the laughter, how do you know? How do you know how you're doing?
Exactly. You might as well just be, doing it in the mirror because there's just no way to gauge if it's landing.
Yeah, and it's actually so funny that you mentioned that because so before I started doing stand-up comedy, I did a one-woman show. And a one-woman show, it's like a monologue, a long monologue. And when I started doing stand-up, I just thought like, okay, I'll do my 5 minutes and I'll memorize them and rehearse them like a monologue. Stand-up comedy does not work that way because you need to interact with the audience. You need to feed off of the audience. You need to pause. You know, if there's a heckler and you just completely ignore them, that doesn't make for a good show. So that was something I had to learn because when I started, it's funny, like they say you don't know what you don't know. When I started doing stand-up, I thought it was great. I thought I was like fabulous. And it took me like a year to realize how bad I was at the beginning. And I had the opportunity when I started out, I did some shows at I was good enough to get on some shows, but not by any means good enough to get on with headliners and things like that. And I remember I did some shows at the Comedy Store and I was harassing the general manager. And I got him to come and watch me one night. And he's like, yeah, you need to just keep with it. Like he was supportive because I'm like, I'm fabulous. I'm so good.
And I was not placating compliments. This is like, okay.
Yeah, but there are people who never realize they're not good. At least I realized I wasn't good, and I started really trying to get better. Like I started taking classes from headlining comedians, doing some one-on-one private coaching and things like that. Because I was like, okay, like there is kind of a formula. There are some tricks of the trade. There are certain things that I should know if I'm going to pursue this as a professional. So
it is a very different thing. I can't imagine getting up there and engaging an audience in that way. I mean, I did theater, but nothing compared to anything that you've done. But I loved that, and I loved knowing the audience was out there. But I just really would never just stand up in front of a group of people sitting around a table drinking and like, I'm going to make you laugh. It's like, I don't know.
Well, that's also like the different part of the beast of stand-up comedy, because, for example, my one-woman show was a comedy, but I could have still done a great show and had a great night in the theater without having laughter on every punchline. With a play, it can still be a comedy. People can still think it's good without laugh out loud laughter every third sentence. For a comedy show, if you are not making them laugh, like, it's the audience is kind of sitting there like,
they're
make
waiting.
me laugh. I dare you.
I dare you. Yeah, that you do have those people in the audience, don't you? I mean, anybody who's coming to a play to see a comedy, they're coming kind of expecting to enjoy. They're there to laugh. They're going to be part of it. But there is an attitude that comes with the folks sitting in a comedy club. There is that I dare you. There's always those people. You may have the folks who are just there to, drink and laugh and have a good time. They're there with friends. But you always have those I dare you people.
Yeah, and the play, you're taking them on a journey of storytelling. So same with comedy, but it's just a totally different beast. That's the only way I can kind of describe it. It's just a different beast. And and just the suspension of disbelief that happens in a play.
Right.
People are willing to come along for the ride, whereas in stand-up comedy, they're reluctant to come along until you force them.
Right.
It's not that same setting. It's not, also because there's multiple people coming on stage, it's very rare. Even when you have like a big headliner, there's usually a warm-up act. So there's a few different things happening, but I find it to be a great challenge, and it's only made me a better actor, that's for sure.
Well, that's definitely, I can't see how it could make you worse. I mean, that there's such a learning curve that goes with that. And you either, go, oh gosh, I'm terrible at this, and bail out, or you work harder to get better. And that's exactly what you were doing. You're doing all of those things to grow that craft. And of course, those things can translate into more than just stand up, which is fabulous. And I do want to talk about your one-woman show, because of course your one-woman show led to a book. Yes. And what an interesting ride that was for you. So tell me about that.
Okay, so I feel like my whole career is a series of things I never thought I would do.
Which I love.
So the one-woman show, again, is something I never intended to do, never planned on doing. I had produced 2 one-woman shows for friends. And in the process, that even solidified the fact that I would never do one, because these women were so talented. And I was just so in awe of their capability to play multiple characters and keep the audience engaged for, an hour plus time on their own. So I was happy to help them, and I was eager to help because I really believed in these women and their stories. One was called Latina on the Loose, and the other one was called Mommified. And they were both spectacular, and they both won awards for their shows. And, the shows went on and found life. So after I helped with them, they went quite beyond. So that was amazing. And I just was like, that's not the type of actor I am. Like, I could never do multiple characters. I just didn't have not like stand-up comedy where I thought I was fabulous. I was like, no, this is so outside of my wheelhouse. Like, there's no point even trying. And then I met a woman at a creative workshop, not an acting workshop, but a creative workshop. And we became friendly. Her husband owned an agency. She was like, you're new to LA. You need to create a vehicle for yourself to invite the industry and let them know you exist. Mm-hmm. And she's like, a one-woman show would be great. You're a good actress. You're a good writer. Use those skills to create a vehicle. And okay, sure, you're telling me that's the way I can get a foot in the door. Right. And I feel like everything I've done in my career has been somebody suggesting like, oh, maybe that could be your break. Oh, maybe that can open a door for you. So anytime somebody suggested something, I was just like, okay, I'll try it. And we were chatting about different ideas, and I had just come from New York, so I was more into some artsy avant-garde theater stuff.
Mhm.
And she was like, no. She's like, none of those ideas are gonna fly. You're in LA, you need something commercial, you need something, that's gonna grab people's attention. And I just kind of rattled off, like, as a joke, like, oh, Year of the Slut, like this coming of age story that I did think eventually one day might be a book, like maybe like when I was like in my 60s, I'd write that book. When I was done with acting, because a book is time consuming. And I was like, I'm not going to take that kind of time off of acting. So anyways, I developed the show. I did it in LA as a showcase. And like in the movie La La Land with Emma Stone, nobody really came. Like, sure, friends from my acting class came and stuff like that, but nobody of any note in terms of like the industry, agents, directors, people who could hire me. But I realized I wasn't as bad as I thought I would be.
Now that is a very good revelation to have. Yeah. Along with knowing that you're not good at something, it's good to acknowledge when you are.
Yes.
Even if no one comes.
And even like the writing process, because I was writing in my apartment, in my living room, or at the kitchen table. And even the writing process when I was coming up with characters, because I specifically was like, okay, like how many characters can I play? What kind of accents can I do? What kind of people can I embody? Because I wanted to showcase like a wide range of what I could do as an actor.
Right.
And I was just, these people would take on lives of their own, and like these accents would come out of me. And then I'd start like shuffling around the apartment, like with their posture or the way they would move. And that would help influence like their story. And I was just like, oh my goodness, like, I kept surprising myself. Yeah. Like I was impressed. I impressed myself with what I learned I was capable of, which I never would have knew had I not embarked on this journey. So I did the show. Like I said, nobody of note came. It didn't get me what I wanted, but I decided like, let me stick with this for a little bit. I put X amount of work into it, several months, several dollars. Let's just keep going. I did another workshop. I got into a festival in New York. Lo and behold, I win the Audience Choice Award, which I never would have dreamed. And I was just like, oh, like, and it's funny, like I didn't get the things that started me on the path, but I got other things that were super cool and exciting anyways. So that was the trajectory. And then after I won the award in New York, I randomly met a woman who knew a literary agent, and we were just chatting. And she was like, oh, your show sounds like it would be a great novel. Let me introduce you to my friend who's a literary agent. And
wow.
I got invited to some book launch at Random House in Toronto and met with the agent, and nothing really came of that, but it just kind of set me off on the path of, well, maybe this book could be okay.
Sometimes you need the nudge, right? I mean, you need some door to open. You need something to kind of spark that chain of events. You need the first firecracker to be lit for the rest of the strand to go. And you never know when that's going to happen. And sometimes, it's unexpected ways. So even though that wasn't the one, now you knew, okay, this can be something.
Once again, somebody suggested, like, this could be an opportunity. This could be your break, So anytime somebody suggested like, oh, why don't you try this? Oh, why don't you try? So then I wrote the book, and the book was a lot of stop and start and getting discouraged and not being able to look at it, and then getting, taking a break and then getting excited about it again and trying again. But also like with stand-up comedy, the first time I tried shopping around the book, I had never worked with like a real editor, so it's no surprise that none of these publishers or agents were interested. It's like a lesson I keep learning over and over again. It's like, oh, wait a second, seek professional help.
Yes, on every level possible.
So, and it's so funny, like every stage of the game, I keep learning that lesson over and over again. And it's like, oh, wait, maybe I should hire an editor. Maybe there's somebody who could help me with like the story arc and like the grammar and, keeping things consistent tenses throughout the book.
That's an important one.
Yeah, you would think.
You'd be surprised how often you can find yourself when you're writing changing tenses and you're like, wait a minute, I got to go back and rewrite that entire chapter. It's not present tense. I mean, it's things that you learn along the way. But yeah, definitely guidance. It would be like doing a play with no director. You're just gonna be like, here's your script actors, go up there. No one's watching you to refine anything. You're just gonna do what you want to do. And it could be okay. But
it could be okay, but it won't be as good as it could be.
Probably.
With an outside eye guiding you through it. So, so like I said, it was a lot of stop and go over several years. And then eventually in 2017, a friend of mine didn't know I had written a novel. And he just was like, well, you have to finish it. Like, it doesn't matter whether you sell it or it ever becomes the success you hoped it would be when you began the journey. That's not the point. The point is you've put all this work and all these years into it. Just make it to the finish line and self-publish it on Amazon. Because I didn't want to go through the whole trying to find an agent, trying to find a publisher all over again. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of emotion to go through that.
Oh my gosh, it can be a defeating process.
Yeah. So I took the advice and I just went and pushed through and did it. And in 2018, I launched it. I struggled with the original title because I kept getting censored.
I can imagine.
For advertising on social media and Amazon because the algorithms don't understand nuance.
No, they don't.
They couldn't figure out it was a feminist piece.
Yes. As opposed to bashing women. Yeah, the algorithms have no sense of humor.
Yeah. So the play that won the award was called Year of the Slut. I tried to launch it as Year of the Slut. It didn't work out. I gave it a year and a half. A colleague of mine, after a year of it being dead in the water, suggested I change the title. I was so reluctant because I attributed the success in the theater to the title. I really...
Rather than yourself and your own talent?
Well, no, because if you can't get butts in seats,
that's true.
A play can't succeed.
Good point.
But if you have a title that people are like, wow, we got to see that, then it's, some heavy lifting has kind of been done for you. And when I did it in New York, I had done a Kickstarter fundraiser. I had money to buy ads in the Village Voice, which is like the newspaper for the village in New York and all the cool hip stuff. So that title just was fabulous. And I was competing with everything else on stage in New York. And enough people came to see my piece that they voted it for an Audience Choice Award for the festival that I was in.
That's so cool.
It was amazing. It was so unexpected. But that's also what tripped me up in terms of changing the title when I adapted it to a literary version, because that title was so great for selling tickets in New York and getting butts in seats as an unknown. But then, I just kind of got killed by the algorithm online. And so eventually I just surrendered to it. And now it's Year of the What. And it actually works better because it's a trilogy. And the second book is Year of the Bitch, which will be coming out in about a year. And I know I'll have the same problems with that too. So
maybe not quite as many. You can at least say that word on the radio. Like they don't bleep that one out on the radio. So maybe you'll get away with that one.
Well, you can say slut on the radio too.
That's true.
What about slut walk? Slut walk was like this huge revolutionary movement that actually started at the university that I went to in Toronto. And you know, so it's not subversive. It's not as subversive as people would think.
No, I'm glad that you managed to defeat the algorithm, even if it meant changing the title, because that's what got you on this show tonight. And you've got so many other things that you're working on. And I want to talk about Make Your Own Break for just a minute too. So let folks know what that is all about, because I love this.
Yes. So in 2012, I took a few business courses just because why not? I realized that
doing everything else, you might as well do that too, right?
Well, you know what? Even as a creative, I was like, well, I am my own business. Mm-hmm. It would behoove me to get some know-how into the business world, just in terms of like marketing myself better, branding myself, just, you know, things that normal business people do that artists or creatives don't necessarily think about. Mm-hmm. So I took some business classes, and basically they were saying that everybody's an expert at something. And what, you know, if you can figure out what you're an expert at, that's a good way to market yourself and, you know, start a business. And also they were saying, like, you don't have to be the best person in that field. You just have to be several steps ahead of the people that you're going to help.
Exactly.
And I was like, wow, I am an expert in low budget film and theater production. I used to run a theater company in the East Village before I moved to LA. Before I did my own one-woman show, I produced one-woman shows for friends. I produced more since mine. I was hired. I actually got hired to produce a one-woman show in Australia, which was awesome. Wow. So I'm really good at helping people develop their one-woman shows. I'm really good at low-budget production and finding a way to make things happen with nothing. And
that's a talent right there. That is a talent.
And once I won the award in New York, it gave me the confidence to really kind of step into my power in that arena and say, like, okay, I could actually help other actors and writers figure out how to put together low budget productions. Mm-hmm. And that's how Make Your Own Break was born. And it's a consulting business. I do one-on-one production consulting. I also do producing 101 workshops. So it's not geared towards people who went to film school and have a degree from, you know, NYU or UCLA. This is geared towards actors and writers who are trying to create vehicles for themselves to make their own break. And the tagline is stop waiting, start creating, and make your own break. Because so many of us in the creative world, we're waiting for that break. We're waiting tables as our side job. There's so much waiting going on when we can spend our energy and our resources creating projects for ourselves. So that's how Make Your Own Break started. And then I always intended to write some how-to books under the Make Your Own Break umbrella, like, just because it's something I've been doing for a while. I have a blog where I write weekly production advice just about independent productions. And usually the blog just has to do with stuff that I'm dealing with in my own world that week. There's not really any rhyme.
Dealing with it too. I mean, that's a great resource to have.
Yeah. So there isn't really rhyme or reason to the order of the topics I choose. It's usually just what I'm dealing with at that time. So during the pandemic, a few things happened, which kind of expanded the Make Your Own Break thing. The colleague who suggested I change the title while I was undergoing the rebranding suggested, well, you're locked down, you can't leave your house. Why don't you record your audiobook? You did the show, you did all the voices, do your audiobook. So I did, and I messed up so much that I recorded the whole book once and had to throw everything in the garbage and do it a second time. So when I spoke to this colleague again, the pattern is every time I talk to her, she creates more work for me. So I spoke to her after the whole process was done. And she's like, oh, it sounds like you're ready to write a book to advise other authors on how not to make all the mistakes you made. So they only have to record it once instead of twice like you did.
Like, great. So now you have make your own break, and then, learn from my mistakes and don't do as I did and do as I say, not as I do. You've got so many avenues you can take this now.
Yeah. So even though I had always intended to write the make your own break books for theater production and film production and solo show development, those are still on the list. I just haven't gotten to them yet. This one just kind of bubbled up, and I was just like, I actually really think I can help people. And I would hate to have people make the mistakes I made if I could just simply be like, don't do this the way I did it. And so my friend Stacy, she actually is a writing teacher. She teaches at Pasadena College, Glendale College. And now my book is on her recommended reading list.
I love it. That's fantastic.
Yes. So that was awesome. And, so it's just like a very simple, straightforward how-to guide, step by step. Make your own break, how to record your audiobook in 7 simple steps. Record and publish, because we also get into the publishing and how you can self-publish your audiobook, just like you can self-publish your literary book. And then fast forward like 2 months later, a friend of mine is an executive coach in New York, and he calls me up and he's like, hey, I have a couple of clients struggling connecting with their team via Zoom. Do you think you can give them some acting coaching, to help them polish their presentations and help them connect better over Zoom? So I got some clients to do some executive coaching, and I'm a very organized person. And before I felt like worthy, let's say, coaching these people, I was like, okay, I got to write things out, and I got to come up with like a cohesive step-by-step what I think, would be effective. Mm-hmm. And after a few coaching sessions, I realized there's a lot of people who could probably benefit from this, because part of it is
on Zoom now.
That's the whole thing, and it's not going away.
No.
So part of it is like lighting and setup and background and all of that stuff. But the other half of it is connecting on camera and connecting with people and charging your words with intentions, which is what actors do.
Yes. And
also being aware of habits you might have that you're not aware of. Because
good point.
What is it? 90% of communication is nonverbal.
Yep.
So if we're not aware of our habits and just little idiosyncrasies we have that are magnified when we're on camera, that can blow a meeting for us.
Yes.
So I came up with the other make your own break, how to master your virtual meeting in 7 simple steps. I like 7. I like 7 steps.
Good number.
It's a good number.
A great number.
Yeah, and it's actually enough.
Yes.
There doesn't need to be more.
It's not overwhelming. That's overwhelming. A great middle range. I can do this. It's going to get me where I need to go, but I'm not going to drown in the process. I'm not going to forget, 12 steps, and then what am I going to do?
Yeah, and the books are short. They're very short. They're very concise. They're just a guide. One of the reviews on Amazon said they wanted more of my backstory of how my road to success. And I was just like, oh, that's not really the book I'm writing here. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I'm like, if I'm a very business a very busy business person. Do I really need to know what this girl did? Like,
Right.
I just want the steps. So that's all I provided in the book. And, love it or leave it type of thing. And I think the more concise it is, the more helpful it is.
I agree with you. I did some training, just professional development stuff for my own full-time job.
Teaching.
And teaching, I'm an instructional coach. Now I was an 8th grade English teacher. I taught online, and now I'm an online instructional coach. So now I teach teachers.
Amazing.
And it's a lot of fun. I love it. But one of the books that we're using, I absolutely know that the man knows what he's doing. He's very successful, has lots of videos and tons of things. But there was so much backstory, so much of his story, that the more I got into it, the more I thought, I'm having to read this for the training that I'm doing. I don't need this. I need to know what I need to do. As my teachers are busy, I'm busy. I can't get into all of this. Just tell me what I need to know. And I kind of jokingly told one of my colleagues, I said, this guy's great, but he could have written a really fabulous pamphlet and I would have gotten as much out of it, because this is too much storytelling, too much of that backstory. And it was difficult to find the meat of it and all of that. So I have to agree, as somebody who's been mired in the opposite, I agree with your strategy of just getting to the nitty gritty of what I need to know. Anyone who's approaching that type of subject really just I need to be able to read this and be better for the next meeting. Not, I need to just absorb your personal story. No, I have a goal. Help me get there.
Yeah. And, I'm not writing an inspirational piece of literature, and I know there are a lot of how-to books that are like spiritual and inspirational and things like that. But I'm not trying to inspire somebody to do something they're on the fence about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to give people information to do something that they probably don't want to do, but they have no choice.
Yeah.
Which is how I feel about the whole, virtual world, like we were talking about before we started.
Yes, it's problem solving. I mean, and that's what you have, and through your own experience. And it's keeping people from getting stuck in what you had to go through to learn the lessons that you've learned. And honestly, yes, we have lovely conversations like this where we get to hear your story of where those roadblocks came and how you detoured around them, getting people to come along with you for the ride, or people shoving you further down the road. And that's what this is for. But when you have that book in your hand and you need a how-to guide, I need a how-to guide. And so I love that you have that distinction. And so you have your personality is out there in so many ways, and you're so much fun to talk to and just kind of hang out with. I really, truly am enjoying this. But at the same time, when, okay, this business is business. We're going to do this. Don't make the same mistakes I made. You don't need to hear what my mistakes are. You need to know what I know to do it right. And that's a great balance to strike. And that's not something everybody can do.
Yeah. And I do have to say, there is a little more like cheerleading and motivation going on in the audiobook guide, because I am trying to talk authors into doing their own recordings, because I think it's very easy, like even authors who are considering it, it's very easy to talk ourselves out of things. Yes. It's easier to talk ourselves out of things than talk ourselves into things. Mm-hmm. So that one does have more like encouragement written into it and more of like a cheerleader tone of voice, because I am trying to talk somebody into something they can very easily just say, it's not for me.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
But the virtual meeting, it's like you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. So I'm just going to give it to you as straight as I can.
You don't have a choice. You don't have to wear pants, but you need to do it right.
Oh, you do have to wear pants if you read my book. That's one of the key things. If you don't mind, I'm going to extrapolate on that a little bit, because in acting, wardrobe is huge. Mm-hmm. You put on, you've done theater. Yep. You get into that costume to play your character. You get their shoes on. You get even the undergarments that your character would wear. It changes everything.
It does. It really, you become someone else. And, they say the same thing about students in uniform and dress code and things. And my son went to a boarding school in New England, and he had to wear the jacket, the tie, socks mattered, all of this, but it was all about making them take on, looking at academics as something that is professional.
Exactly.
And it changed them as students, as opposed to, some of the ones I've seen in my own students show up in pajama bottoms and they're slouching. There's nothing professional about that demeanor, but it has everything to do with how you are presenting yourself. And I will admit, I teach online. I'm an instructional coach online. I do wear pants. I do show up. I get dressed, but I could use the excuse is that I have to take the dog out, and I live in an apartment complex, and people would stare. But it does have a lot to do with just being present in what you're doing and feeling like that what you're doing has purpose, as opposed to just something to get through. So I agree with that. I have to agree with it.
Yeah,
you may get some pushback on the pants thing, but I agree with you. I get it.
In the book, I talk about how you can trick the people on the other side of your Zoom meeting. You can't trick your own brain.
No.
And that's what it all comes down to. So I talk about like full grooming routine. If you usually go to the gym and work out before a big meeting, do your at-home workout. Like, don't skip steps. Just because you're not leaving the house, still go through all the same steps you would as if you were going to show up at the office. Because there's something that happens in our psyche when we go through all of those things, like using the mouthwash, wearing the cologne. It's like, nobody can smell me. You can smell you.
Yes.
You can smell you, and how that, it's all a sensorial experience.
It is.
For yourself. And when you go through this sensorial transformation, it is going to, it's going to come across on the screen.
I could do a large part of my job via email. There are people I may never actually Zoom with that I'm just going to communicate with, because that's the nature of this online high school. But I get up every morning, I do the shower, hair, I got makeup on before I clock in on my computer, and I'm sitting here by myself and my dog. But I am at work, and it helps me. It helps my energy level too. If I just rolled out of bed and kind of sat here in my pajamas, I would have a really hard time being enthusiastic and being that kind of cheerleader for my teachers, and like, hey, I've got you, whatever you need. I know that you're struggling, but I'm here, right here. I'm here for you. And I mean, otherwise it's kind of like, I got my jammies on. I'm going to have, a couple of cups of coffee, and I'll answer your emails when I wake up a little bit. And that's a totally different job performance. And so I think you're definitely on to something. I think we all kind of got into the wear our pajamas to work thing when we first went into lockdown. And that might have been a lovely way to deal with lockdown, but it's not a long-term solution. It's not a good job performance trend to be in. I think the more professional we are, the better we feel about ourselves. And
that's the whole thing. It's all about our own psyche, because the more alert we are, the more prepared we are for the meeting, the more effective we're going to be.
Exactly.
And it has to do with our intentions. I even suggest, beyond pants and grooming, I suggest everybody wears proper shoes. You sit differently when you have proper shoes on. Especially ladies, if we have a pair of dress shoes or heels, we're going to comport ourselves much more differently than if we just have our fuzzy slippers.
Yes. You're right. You're absolutely right. That's great advice.
There's simple little details and simple little tricks. And it's funny, and I just want to mention, like, Marlon Brando, like, as he got older and later in his career, like, if they were just shooting him from like the waist up, he would like refuse to wear his pants. And it just it's just crazy because he's a method actor and he
Yeah.
started off so serious about his craft.
He did.
You know, and then by the time he got so famous, you know, he let it all go.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and to the average person, they probably can't tell the difference in nuance, you know, between.
But now that you've mentioned it, we're all going to go watch Brando movies. We're
I know, but I think it's just indicative of how he lost respect for his craft.
Yeah, I think that is such sage advice, especially for the day and age that we are in. And you are providing such a great service based on your own experiences and doing it with such charm and having some fun with it. And that's, I think, a great combination that people are really going to connect with. So let the folks know how they can connect with you out there in social media land.
Yes. So I am Jen Lieberman. That is my hashtag for everything. You can find me at I am Jen Lieberman. And my acting website is jenniferliebermanactor.com. I also have makeyourownbreak.com, where you can get more information on the Make Your Own Break books. And there is a weekly blog where you can get advice about low budget productions, whether it's film or theater. I talk about both. And yearofthewhat.com is where you can find the book series. There's just the first one out so far, which is Year of the What? Slut. And all the books are also available on Amazon. So you can check it out on Amazon. You can follow my author page on Amazon, on Goodreads, on BookBub. I'm not that hard to find.
I love it. And your website, your Jennifer Lieberman Actor website, has got some great gallery and great clips of you doing your thing. And so I hope folks will go and check that out too. And thank you so much for spending this part of your evening with us on Writer's Showcase. It has truly been my pleasure. And I am just so glad to have had this time with you.
Thank you so much, Nola. This was so much fun. Thanks for the opportunity to chat with you as well.
You are most welcome. So until next time, thank you for joining us on Writer's Showcase.